Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all manner of strange and unusual literature that I've found in my travels. It is, today it is, Monday when I'm recording this. I don't know when I'm going to release this video, but it's a pretty okay Monday, not so hot. My hair is growing out wild and unruly. It's definitely not a lot of fun. Maybe one day I'll be able to get a haircut and I'll be able to brave the hair salon, and instead of being scared of all the various viruses that it may hold. But that's beside the point. Hello and welcome to my June wrap-up July TBR video. I figure it's best to create one singular video like I did last month, because I don't want to make two videos for this. It seems like fine just to make one singular video. We'll see how that goes. Should be a lot of fun. Well, I'll do the wrap-up first and then the TBR afterwards. So, how was June? June was an interesting month. It was a very strange month. Read a lot of interesting books, but beyond that, it was a pretty wild month for the nation and for BookTube. I didn't guess that at the beginning of the month we'd be talking about defunding the police, or holding month-long protest or anything like that. I would have never guessed that would have happened at the beginning of the month. But here we are now, where we're like in 4 weeks into a protest. We're also talking about defunding the police, which is pretty groovy. And where the number of cases of coronavirus is on an uptick. So that's what's been happening just generally in society. Pretty worrying, pretty hopeful. Hopefully, things pick up pretty soon. Otherwise, scary times ahead. July should be an interesting month, though. I hope so. I feel like I'm getting into the swing of things now that I've made it about 2 months into a BookTube channel where I'm doing Poetry Thursday videos. I'm doing Short Story Tuesdays, and I'm also doing 1 or 2 book reviews a week, which I think is a good number. I don't want to do more than that, and I don't want to not do a book review once a week. I want to try to read frequently because it's getting me to read stuff that I haven't read before, which I enjoy. So what books did I read this month? At the beginning of the month, I read The Pearl, which was great. John Steinbeck is a great author, and I thought it was very tragic, but also pretty interesting. Very, very downer ending, but otherwise pretty cool story. I made a bunch of YouTube videos, so you can go and find those videos if a particular book interests you. If a particular book interests you. I also read World War Z, which was wonderful again. I love it every time I read it, and it felt, especially timely now because it deals with a fictional pandemic, and we are in the midst of a real pandemic where the bureaucracy and the powers that be just did not act in time, and that kind of messed things up for everyone. I also read The Tempest by Shakespeare, which I was not a fan of. One thing I didn't mention in my video was that it was it's largely seen as Shakespeare's final work, and it's sort of him saying goodbye to the stage and the production world of that kind of thing. However, I looked it up, and it's not actually his final work. It's there were a couple other plays after this, so it feels weird to say goodbye when there's still stories to be written. And also, it just makes this really dumb. If it was his final work, totally, I might be more lenient, but this wasn't his final work, so it just comes off like he was checked out by this point, so he didn't want to write a real story. I also read Frendel, which again is a pretty solid story. Don't have much to say about that. I also read Artemis Fowl. Hated that Disney ruined the adaptation, but I love the story. Ian Colfer is a fantastic author. And I love how terrible Artemis Fowl is. Like, it's uncompromising in creating a bad protagonist for you to hate, but also love to hate. So that was fun to read. I also read The Death of the Author by Roland Barthes. That was more of an essay, and I read it to incite discussion. Go check out that video if you can, because I feel like I'm going to say death of author a lot, and it's just good for people to know what exactly I mean when I say that. And it's also an interesting idea, like how much weight should you hold to what the author says? How there's the idea of subjectivity versus objectivity and stories. A lot of stuff to consider there. And then I also read The Princess Diaries. I absolutely loved it. It was a pretty solid story. There were a few issues, which if you go to my video, you'll see the issues I have. I really hope they don't pop up in future stories, because I do intend to read through the entire series for some unknown reason. But I hope it's good. In the video I made, I said Meg Cabot wasn't very prolific. That was actually wrong of me to say. In addition to writing Avalon High and the Princess Diaries series, she's written a lot of what people call chick lit, which is just fiction with female protagonists. And she's written a lot of that, so it's a very lengthy career. And the Princess Diaries was some of her early work, so I would be interested in seeing if she's gotten better in later books. We'll have to see as I go through that. And then the last book that I read was for this month that will actually come out in July. The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson series. I didn't read that when I was growing up, because I thought it was, this is just a ripoff of the Harry Potter series. I was probably wrong about that. And since I started reading it, I can see how I was kind of wrong about that. So far, I'm about 150 pages in, and I'm not a fan. So we'll see how it goes. Look out for that review coming before next Monday, probably. I also read a number of short stories over the course of this month. The Most Dangerous Game, again, a classic. We love Anderson Cooper. R.L. Mazes is a fantastic author, and I would love to read more of her work. Afsana, which is short stories from Iranian women. I think that was an important book for me for gaining a cultural understanding of feminism in Iran. I would love to read more books like that in the future. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which was gross and hideous, and I loved it. Since reading it, I have found that Harlan Ellison was a bit problematic. So I don't know if I'm going to be reading more of his work. Maybe I will, but I don't know if my understanding of his misogyny is going to guide the future, what I think about him in the future. Hopefully it doesn't ruin anything for me, but if need be, then I don't care. If he was misogynistic, then screw him, right? I also read, which is coming out on Tuesday, which it should have already come out by the time this video came out. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale by Philip K. Dick, and I have a lot to say about that, so make sure you check out. And much like with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, I was really glad to have read it, because it's one of the classics from the 60s of one of the early sci-fi writers. Not totally early, because it dates back even further than that, but some of the authors who were beginning to see the technology forming around them and were like, let's talk about that. Let's see how far we can take it. So I thought We Can Remember It For You Wholesale and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream were fantastic stories. And then I read a bunch of poetry from Shel Silverstein, Anxiety, My Bees, Genetics. Go check out those videos. Poetry is always fun to talk about. Now on to my TBR. What do I have planned for July? I have a couple interesting stories planned for July. I have 4-ish books planned. Again, be sure to check out my review for The Lightning Thief when it comes out later this week. I'm also finally going to get around to reading House of Leaves. Noah from Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse says it's really good, and I've been sitting on it for a while. Like, I just have never gotten around to reading it, so I'm looking forward to finally checking that out. I checked out Prey by Michael Crichton from the local library. I previously only read Jurassic Park by Crichton, so I'm very interested in seeing what some of his other work is like. I'm planning on reading Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver, one of my absolute favorite top 10 books. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And then Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, which kind of gives me Journey to the Center of the Earth kind of vibes. So we'll see how well that is. I'm hoping it's not, it doesn't have the same themes of Journey to the Center of the Earth, because if you recall from my video, like, I was pretty miffed about some of the things that popped up in it. But I'll talk more about that later. And then in addition to that, I do have two of the Princess Diaries series books, the second one and the third one in the series coming my way. So those two will probably be released in July. So look out for that. I do have 4 short stories planned. They are coming from Grand Union, which is which seems to be a collection of short stories similar to We Love Anderson Cooper. So I'm looking forward to that because I love Anderson Cooper, so I might enjoy this. There's also the Refrigerator Monologues. I don't exactly know what that's about, but it's another collection of short stories similar to the Vagina Monologues. I'll have to see there. There's also a book that I'm trying to get after the People Lights have gone off, which is a series of horror short stories, and I'd love to be able to feature that on the channel because horror short stories, I don't think they get a lot of play a lot of the times. Not people focus on sci-fi and fantasy short stories, but we should always consider horror because horror is pretty cool. And then I also plan on reading some Isaac Asimov. Because, again, much like with Philip K. Dick and Harlan Ellison, he's one of the sci-fi people. I don't feel I'm well-versed in Isaac Asimov, so I would love to read one of his short stories. And then, finally, I have 5 poems planned. I don't know who a majority of the people I'm going to pick. Often with the cases poetry it's kind of like a couple days before I'll just pick out a random poet and try to find one of their more stranger poems to fit the theme of this channel. That doesn't always work though, but I figure I got some interesting poetry lined up, at least the ideas of poets. Joy Harjo, who's a Native American poet, and Charles Bukowski, who was a sort of a confessionalist poet, although I don't think he really argued that he belonged to that school of poetry. But I am a big fan of his poetry, even though it comes off a bit misogynistic at times. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And so that's my wrap up in my TBR. If you think there's anything specific you would like me to check out over the course of July or even going into August, be sure to comment below. I would love to hear from you, and then like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more from me in the future. I think that's all I have to say. So I bid you a fond farewell. Have a great time in your weird travels.